Okay, let's go ahead and state the elephant in the room. I am not a dark-skinned woman. I do not move about this world as a dark-skinned woman, and that is the obvious. I consider myself to be a light brown-skinned woman. Some people may even say that I am a light-skinned woman. I don't quite identify with that label, but I do know that that label may exist. Now that we've gotten that out the way, let's show some love for our dark-skinned queens in hip-hop, because they do exist. And it's so many commentary, there's so much commentary around the Lil Wayne lyrics.
I like a long hair, thick red pants.
And other folks' lyrics, and ASAP Rocky's, and the praise of light-skinned women. And I have to remind y'all real quick, dark-skinned queens, they out here. So I grew up as a child, a very young child, in the 90s and a teenager in the 2000s. And I remember, and I know it wasn't a fever dream, I remember dark-skinned women being the love interest of so many pieces of work in hip-hop, from music videos to movies to poems to so many, to sitcoms to commercials. I remember dark-skinned women being elevated. Now, I will say the disparity does exist, that light-skinned women have been praised in hip-hop, and exotic women, racially ambiguous women. I really hate that word, because I feel like that word is another word for, like, I'm colorblind. What is racially ambiguous? I really hate that word, because race is a social construct. People have ethnicities and nationalities. People have an origin, whether it's Persian, whether it's multiracial, whether it's Trinidadian. The racially ambiguous thing is just so absurd to me, but I know that it exists. And the disparity of light-skinned women and women of different nationalities have been elevated. Don't come for me in those comments, y'all. Don't come for me. We've already stated the obvious of how I show up in the world, but I do want us to recollect and think on the nostalgic moments of when dark-skinned women were that girl in hip-hop. There are going to be a couple of names that I'm going to drop in this video, and I hope that you would do what I am doing. Recognize these women, praise these women, and remember, even though light-skinned women in hip-hop lyrics sometimes are revered and placed up on a pedestal, there have been moments in history, and I really want us to share this with the younger generation of dark-skinned women and girls that are coming up, that they were the love interest. They were the epitome of what men were running after in videos. They were the number one girls, and the light-skinned girls were the friends of. And if you don't believe me, just watch. So the first video I want to talk about, or the person that I want to talk about, is none other than Sherane in House Party 1990. Sherane, who was played by AJ Johnson, was that girl. She was stylish, she could dress, she was quick-witted, and Tisha Campbell was the friend of. Sherane was a beautiful dark-skinned woman in 1990s House Party that was that girl. So as early as 1990, a dark-skinned woman was praised in a hip-hop iconic classic movie. Now, let's move on to 1992 and Class Act. Let's keep up with Kid and Play. But they had a trend of really elevating dark-skinned women. Shout out to Kid and Play for that. Particularly Play. Play is still fine. Y'all, let's have a moment for Play. Alicia Rogers as Demita? Alicia Rogers as Demita, she was so beautiful. I remember sneaking and watching Class Act with my older cousins. I think I was probably about maybe 7 or 8 or 8 or 9, and I was like, she is just so beautiful. And I just saw her as just a black woman, not necessarily a dark-skinned woman. I just saw her as a beautiful woman. And I have to say this because representation matters. There's been a lot of buzz about Halle being the new Little Mermaid, and whatever we think about that, I'm happy that she's playing the Little Mermaid. But in Class Act, Demita was very beautiful, very sexy, gave that sex appeal. She was very soft. Demita was soft and friendly and fashionable, and she was just someone that everybody wanted and everybody wanted to be. And I just wanted to make a note here that even though something is portrayed in the media, it doesn't necessarily translate into real life. Because I remember my older cousins and a lot of their girlfriends were dark-skinned, shapely girls, like in high school. And those were their pick. Those were the girls that they talked about and they were on the phone with. So I just want to make a note here. I know that we have media reparations that we need to reclaim as far as how Black people have been betrayed in the media and how some dark-skinned women have been villainized in certain pieces of work. But that doesn't always translate into real life. And I just wanted to make a note of that. But Demita was everything. I'm not trying to rush this video, but I'm trying to get so many women into this video. Taral Hicks as Keisha and Belly. Y'all cannot tell me that everybody wanted Keisha. There's actually this soundbite on TikTok.
Keisha was a bad motherfucker. Tall, dark skin.
Going around that talks about, you remember Keisha, she had the big, and she had the, that soundbite is being used by every beautiful dark-skinned woman. Hell, I want to use that soundbite, but I don't want people to call me out. But it talks about her being dark-skinned and beautiful, and Taral Hicks is still beautiful to this day. But you cannot tell me that every man wasn't glued to the screen when it came to Keisha being portrayed under that beautiful blue light. Beautiful blue. Reagan Gomez, a crush on Reagan Gomez, Maya Campbell, Tatiana Ali, and I would even say Lark Voorhees. Yes, definitely Lark Voorhees from Voorhees. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. From Saved by the Bell, because I believe her and Mark Paul Glosser, who was Zach, was checking for Lark, the all-American white boy who's really Asian and white, but that's a whole nother story, was checking for Miss Lark. And again, because I know I'm going to get some critics, this is not saying that dark-skinned women were just as represented as equally as light-skinned women, as non-black women, white women. This is just saying these women did exist, and they were coveted. They were loved. They were desired. They were put on a pedestal. When we think about all of these women, and again, how you perceive skin tone may be perceived different ways to different people. No, these women were not dark skin, but they were not light. Some of these women weren't even my complexion, and I don't even consider myself to be light. So they would fall more brown, dark skin to others. So dark-skinned little girls could identify with them. And 90s TV was pushing out the dark skin and brown skin beauties. And I just feel so good that I'm bringing this to everyone's memory. I hope that this video is comforting for some people so that they can actually see themselves. Sometimes we get so hooked up on, I like a long hair, thick red bone, or if she ain't bright, or make sure she a China doll, that we forget about the dark skin tone that has been praised in women in hip hop and also in TV. And that's all this video is doing, starting this conversation so that we can say, hey, it hasn't been everybody to think this way. And there have been bodies of work that have tried to elevate dark skinned women. And I'm just making a note of the dark skinned women that have been praised in hip hop and also pop culture. So I do want to talk about Miss Gone with the Wind Fabulous herself, Kenya Moore. Kenya Moore was queen of the cameos. She was a queen herself as Miss USA, but she was also queen of the cameos in Martin, in Fresh Prince, and so many other sitcoms and also movies. I believe she was in Deliver Us from Eva. I believe she was in Deliver Us from Eva as well. But Kenya Moore, almost every guy that I've talked to or if I've dated, they've said that they had a crush on Kenya Moore at one point in time or another. Now, I know she's on Real Housewives and we've gotten to know her as a real person. That's why they say never meet your idols. Baby, Miss Kenya Moore, she was that girl. And also in the modeling industry, Naomi Campbell was beyond beautiful. Beverly Johnson, beyond beautiful. And some may say, oh, well, they got popular or they got famous in Europe. But they were also very popular and very beautiful here. Naomi Campbell, I mentioned, Beverly Johnson, also Iman, another darker brown skinned woman. These women existed. These women were beautiful. These women were put up on a pedestal in the industry. Again, for the haters, for the critics, I know, and I understand, and I believe we all understand that light-skinned women or people that have more European features have been praised. And this video is also not about featureism. This is about skin tone. We can do another video about features. But when it comes to skin tone, darker skinned women have been love interests throughout my lifespan. I remember at the end of the 80s, well, let's start at the 90s into the 2000s, dark skinned women were love interests. And this is what I remember. And I wanted to really put that on display. Now let's move into hip hop. Foxy Brown was right up there with other rappers that were beautiful and sexy, and she was a damn good artist and femc. So I definitely want to put Foxy Brown into that category of being love interest, and she was praised. I remember a lot of men talking about Foxy Brown and wanting to be with Foxy Brown, and not just because of her sexuality, but also because of her beauty. Now, I want to talk about Buffy the Body Baby. Buffy the Body changed the game. The reason why BBLs exist now is because of Buffy the Body. Now, I don't know if she was surgically enhanced or not, but there were women out there with that shape. There were natural Keishas and Tiffany's and Kayla Nicole's in the neighborhood that were shaped like Buffy the Body. Child, Buffy the Body had the Melissa Fords and the Corinne Stephens shook when she came into the game. Everybody wanted Buffy the Body in their video in the early 2000s, really throughout the entire 2000s. And Buffy is such a sweetheart. I believe she's on TikTok and also on Instagram. This video encourages other content creators to build up on my work, but y'all, please give me my credit. Please build up a smaller channel, the Joya channel, if you're going to feature some of the things that I talked about on your channel. That is all I ask, is that you drop me a line and ask folks to come right to my video. So I hope this video was received with an open heart and an open mind. Bye.